We are here in the studio yet again. Sweet recording studio. Jay Falconio from REMCO Real Talk here with a special guest, Kevin Diduch.
Thank you.
Did I get that right?
Diduch. That's all right. That's okay. That's
Kevin?
why the firm's called Katie Law.
Katie Law.
I did name my entire business after an acronym just to avoid people having to say my last name. So,
well, it's good to have you. I know, Kev, we've been networking for a while on and off the scene through Jersey, PA. Just an incredible networker, I would say, especially for a lawyer.
You or me?
You.
Me?
You,
okay.
Yeah, you're a good networker for a lawyer. I will say that. You lawyers, sometimes it's hard for you guys to get out. So you're always out.
We're a difficult breed of people,
right.
Generally. My wife can attest to that.
Understood. And I'm always very happy to see you on social. You do a great job engaging. I know you're a big Disney guy.
I am. In fact, we're going 19 days away from another trip down to the magical world of Mickey Mouse.
How many times a year do you go?
Too many. 3.
Too many? 3
Usually
a year?
2 to 3.
Awesome. That's pretty cool.
2 to 3. Well, my kids are young. You know, my oldest daughter's 8. My youngest daughter is 4. So now is the time to capitalize on those moments. I don't want to be a white-haired attorney in a couple of years saying to myself, man, I wish I had done more with my kids. And I don't want to have the word regret does not want to enter my vocabulary at any point.
Good point. Well, I'm happy to hear that you're able to make that time and you have that time with your family because that's so very important. How has Disney changed, if you don't mind me asking? I know that I haven't been there in about 10 years.
It's constantly evolving, sort of like all of us, right? Kind of ebbs and flows with the times. New technology, the rides are a little bit more CG animated, things of that nature, but more thrilling rides, I think, over the last couple of years. And it's just bigger. It's bigger and more expensive. That's the biggest thing.
I was waiting for that
way
one.
more expensive.
I was waiting for that one. Well, it's good. Just curious, you know, I've seen you networking a lot. Is there anything that kind of motivated you to get out there and network more now so than ever?
The fact that I didn't see too many of me out there.
Yeah.
Right. Thank God there's not too many of me out there. But aside from that, I mean, really did not see in my field people dedicated to getting to know other businesses and sort of make those connections. You know, even random people that I met 3-4 years ago through COVID.
Okay.
I'm still getting referrals from those connections over the years because
that's great.
For many of those people, I'm the only lawyer that they've met through networking.
Understood.
There's a lot of great networkers out there, a lot of great lawyers who are also networking, but I may have been, one of the earlier ones, at least during the COVID period.
Absolutely. And now in terms of the law that you practice, I know that you situate yourself very closely in the real estate area.
Exactly.
Would you say that that's your specialty?
Yeah, real estate is our forte. If it smells like real estate in New Jersey, it's for us.
Right. And I met you at a networking event, and you gave a presentation, and I was so blown away with all the different forms of kind of types of law that you encounter, from the flipper to the wholesaler to the commercial real estate agent to the residential. I mean, you'll dabble in both commercial and residential? Yeah,
commercial, residential, land use, land development, zoning, landlord tenant, litigation seems to be one of our specialties.
Specialties, yeah.
Breach of contract claims and things like that.
Understood. Was there any other law that you practiced before real estate law, or has that always been your main focus?
I actually started out in bankruptcy foreclosure law, representing creditors in the creditors' rights field, residential mortgage lenders throughout the state of New Jersey, and that transitioned to a stint at a law firm practicing municipal law.
Oh, okay.
So I represented municipalities throughout the state in the identification, designation, and redevelopment of areas in need of redevelopment. Basically taking places that you'd never want to go to into places you wanted to go to.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was neat.
That's pretty interesting. And now practicing, do you have a particular piece of the real estate law that you like doing the most, or you find the most value, or your personal knowledge provides the most value add?
Yeah, I started my career as a litigator first.
Okay.
And in the real estate field, there's not a ton. There's a lot, but there's not a ton of real estate litigators. So I get referrals from other real estate attorneys who are smarter than me and don't want to go to court.
Ah,
So, that's been able to help me segue into more opportunities.
okay. And now, how many days a week for those? Because I'm not familiar with just like your daily schedule on a weekly basis. Is court always a Monday through Friday, or are there weekend
Yeah,
sessions?
courts are Monday through Friday. Typically in the morning is more of your case management conferences, and
Okay,
certain days of the week are designated for trial days and things of that nature.
got it. And about how many days a week would you say you're in court?
I'm in court probably 2 days a week on
2 days a week.
average, which I think is a healthy balance.
It's a healthy balance.
Yeah.
It takes a lot out of you.
Because I got to be in the office to do the other stuff.
Sure, sure.
Like run my business and the
Yeah.
other types of work that we do for other clients in the real estate field,
Absolutely.
but that don't require me to put on a suit and look like a
Yeah. No.
whatever.
I just love. I think it's like, I guess, America, or just the social media, maybe even just like television. They dramatize like the law. Like there's so many good
Oh, it's
shows and
incredible.
movies. So I did want to bring that up at one point. I mean, I love those types of movies. Lincoln Lawyer. Depending on what even type of law that you're practicing, or whatever they're if it's criminal law or it's real estate law. How close is it depicted to the movies?
I can't really watch any of those shows, to
No?
be honest with you, because
Really?
it agitates me. Yep.
Really?
No, that would never happen this way.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching Law and Order and you hear that dun dun, and they go
Mhm.
from pretrial to trial within a matter of seconds. No, it doesn't happen that
Yeah,
way,
no.
right? I mean, it could be months, could be years
Sure.
before a case goes from filing a complaint all the way to a trial. So,
Very interesting. Very interesting.
but I always have watched a ton of Judge Judy. I think she's about the closest as you're going to get
Love it.
to real. In fact, when I was in law school,
Yeah.
I used to watch episodes of Judge Judy to practice for my exams, because there's a lot of real world
Wow.
situations, a lot of
Wow.
smaller claims, breach of contract, property issues,
Accidents,
landlord tenant
yeah,
accidents,
yeah.
things like that. Just the
She
common
really
sense
did
nature
cover
of
the
it.
gamut, now that I think about it. I mean, she did come on at like noon on a Tuesday, where if I was sick, I was watching it with my grandmother. But to think that is actually the closest depiction to actual law it's I learned that today. That's something new.
Yeah, no, it's certainly interesting.
Yeah. Now, I've always been told that lawyers are just great arguers as kids or as teenagers, as you grew up. Like, you're just very good at, I guess, getting your point across. Did you know that you were fit to be a lawyer like all your life? Or
I knew that it was my calling. Yes.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
To have an overwhelming sense of needing to say something or advocate for something.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily a mental health issue or indication that I should be an attorney. I can tell you my daughter has it, my oldest daughter.
You can see it in her.
Oh, gosh, she'll argue back and forth like you wouldn't believe.
And I don't want to make it seem like just because you like to argue means you're going to be a good lawyer. I think it really has to do with you being able to properly put together all the details for someone to see something in your point of view.
Advocate and articulate.
There you go.
Right? I mean, I grew up in a lower to middle class South Jersey household where the F word is your most commonly used adjective,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you can say that word in 50 words or more and prove your point without actually having to say it,
That's good.
I think that's pretty good advocacy
That's
right
pretty
there.
good. That's pretty good. Yeah. But it really does. I guess you said the calling, right? You can see it. It's almost like that you have that gene or you don't. And
Yeah,
that's
and I enjoy
interesting.
it.
Your daughter. Now, are you guys like, you do practice things at home, or is she interested in?
You don't have kids, do you?
No, I don't have
Okay.
kids.
Yeah, no, it's an everyday practice.
It's an everyday
It's
practice.
an everyday practice.
Yeah. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, you're not like setting up an actual court setting or anything. You're just always going back and forth trying to get your point across.
Sometimes it feels like it.
Yeah, that's
you know,
interesting.
hey, you have to go do this, kid. I don't want to for the following reason. She never just says no.
Understood.
It's always no because.
Right. Giving you the
I'm like,
reason.
stop,
Yeah. Interesting.
please.
So, currently, right now, is there a case that you are really having success with, or type of case that you really, are doing a lot of these very well in the real estate world?
I'm doing a ton of breach of contract cases.
That's it. Okay.
It's not just a pandemic in the legal profession, but I think it's outside the legal profession. People not holding to their word on things.
Interesting.
You sign an agreement, it says you're going to do X, Y, and Z. You get to the X, great. You get to the Y, great. You get to Z and people get cold feet. Well, I think I might want to try to get a better deal over here, or I just don't feel like it anymore.
Interesting.
You know, that type of responsibility that comes with the everyday human being psyche.
Yeah.
You know, I have to get up this morning and go to work.
Yeah.
Because I don't want some bank to come and foreclose on my house. I have to get up. I have to take a shower.
Yeah.
I don't want to smell today. I have to take a shower.
Mm-hmm.
People in this world are not doing those everyday things. Well, the shower maybe, but the rest of it, they're just not committed to the everyday, the little nuances of what it takes to be a functioning human being.
It's very interesting.
And it's becoming prolific throughout human culture and the legal profession.
Very interesting. And that you break it down in such a good point where it's just these common things that we need to do every day. Like even that old saying, make your bed in the morning. If you can't make your bed in the morning, what can you do, right? You know, you use the shower example, but do you feel that there's something in society that's allowed people to become less, I guess, committed to doing even the little things, right? I mean, you brought up the contract. You said you were going to do this. And the one point is, I don't feel like doing this.
Yeah. Lawyers are helping to, you know, destroy the ability to adhere to a contract at some point.
Because it's escape.
And it is escape, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not cheap to hire a lawyer.
Right.
So some people would rather spend money on a lawyer than do the thing they were supposed to have done.
Interesting.
They'd rather dedicate that time because to them it's an opportunity cost that allows for them to then go do the thing they want to do that makes them feel special.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of doing the thing they should have done, everybody's sitting there spending money on lawyers. And other lawyers hate it when I say this.
Yeah.
But I will tell people in a room full of the clients, the only people that are going to win here are the lawyers. You know, my kids, they want to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
They do. But I don't want to send them to college on BS cases.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather help people in the process and make my money the right way.
Sure.
So that when they go off and get their law degrees or whatever the hell they want to do, they're in a better place.
Very
and
interesting.
the money's cleaner. Just feels better.
Feels better. Yeah. You can feel like when your head hits the pillow at night that you did something in the positive direction.
Gosh, yeah.
Yeah. And now with other lawyers, do you have these conversations with other lawyers? Do you find yourself benefiting from having access to lawyers that do things that you don't, vice versa? Do you get a lot of referrals from other lawyers, I guess, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. All the time. You know, I liken it to my profession. You know, I'm not an auto mechanic, right? When I'm driving down 295 and my car breaks down, I'm not pulling my law degree out and saying, let me go fix my car.
Good luck.
Which means that somebody else out there does the thing that I don't do.
Yeah.
Or I don't do well.
Yeah, for
there
sure.
are things that I don't do well.
That's a good point.
So it's easier for me to do the right thing and say to a client, listen, I know you like me as a person. I know I did good work for you on this thing over here, but this new thing is not really my thing. So I would rather put you in the hands of somebody whose thing it is to allow them to do it.
And that can go along with, I think I tell this story a few times. When I first got involved in insurance, it was a second industry for me. I came from the hospitality industry, the restaurants and bars and things like that, and got involved in insurance. And when I would start networking, I almost be like, is there another insurance guy in the room? And if so, I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to know him, her. I don't want them to know I'm here. I thought it was a major conflict of interest. And the sooner I could have let that go, the better. Because as soon as I started to network with other insurance brokers, I started not only having more fun with it, and I also realized that a lot of these brokers, like you said, they do something different that I don't do. And what happened was we started just being able to help each other grow. So I think whatever industry you're in, whether it's law, insurance, mortgages, real estate, trying to make sure that you can mingle with those in your same industry in a proper way. I think it's important.
Yeah, you can't do it all.
Can't do it all.
And you can't do it all well.
Yeah.
Especially.
That's true.
So it's important to recognize the things that you're good at and the things that you're not. So
absolutely.
That's good.
If there's a piece of tip that maybe you can give anybody who's in real estate right now, in particular, that should be listening, so that they don't get into a position where they might need to call you, what would that be?
Yeah, don't be afraid to call me.
Okay.
Is the biggest advice that I can give. It's not that I'm going to sit there with my stopwatch and say, okay, well, we've gone past our 15-minute free consultation. I've got to start charging you. I would much rather people call me to ask the question. Don't ask me to give you the whole playbook.
Sure.
Because I don't even know what your case is about. But at least call me and say, hey, Kev, does this make sense to you? Is this okay? And the other advice I would give is read it. Take the time to sit and read what it is that you are and signing off on.
Sure. How much of that is just with things like DocuSign and e-sign and all that? No one's like reading any of that stuff anymore.
Some people prefer DocuSign because they know people won't sit and read it.
Wow. Yeah. Click.
I don't sit and read it.
Yeah.
Even myself, I don't sit and read. I don't take my own advice sometimes.
I hear you. But that could be how detrimental that could be when you don't actually take the time to read the fine writing.
I agree.
Yeah. And you did. I mean, in terms of a testimonial, I did send a close friend of mine your way, and he had some questions for you. He was up in the Poconos, and he said that you were very control the controllables, I think you said.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he was able to get enough out of that 10, 15-minute conversation to get him in the right direction you wanted to do. So,
yeah, not everybody needs a lawyer. We don't always need a lawyer. Yeah. Sometimes your situation requires you just to swallow your pride and do the thing that you should be doing.
Interesting. Sure.
Or at least making that payment. Some people say, oh, I don't want to give them my, half of my earnest money deposit.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the case of a seller, I don't want to give them half their earnest money deposit back. I want to take that money, $2,500.
Yeah.
And keep it for myself. And the next thing you know, you're served with a complaint. Guess what my retainer's going to be?
Yeah, a lot more than $2,500.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, this friend of mine was going through an ordinance up in the Poconos where they were trying to put a halt to short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
So I found it interesting because the community that he lives in, he knows his neighbors, everyone loves him. There was no issues. And I think maybe the township or maybe like the restaurants and hotels were trying to do something with that. Do you know anything about not wanting to have a group of short-term rentals in a vacation town or something like that?
Think of how many taxi cab drivers are out there pissed off right now because of Lyft and
a good point.
All those other companies that are operating, doing the thing that they took so much time, effort, energy, and talent to do and get licensed for.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody on the flip side signed up for an app and says, I'm going to do it too.
Interesting.
So a hotel that's invested in the insurance,
sure,
that's invested in the land and the development and the amenities, they're not going to want to see Billy Bob's, Airbnb overnight because that's cutting into their cheese.
Yeah.
So I get it.
So he went through that. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you bring up, Uber and Lyft and all these forms of technology and how technology is starting to evolve. And I mean, everyone's got to make their money eventually one way or the other. So
it lasts longer when you do it systematically and open to the public,
mm-hmm.
right? The scams to make money, the fast cash, get rich quick schemes,
mm-hmm.
they don't last in the end.
No.
They just don't.
And they're easy to market, right? Like they're easy to market on social. Make your 6 figures in 3 months. It's like that's just such glitz and glamour. Like it really just takes the sweat equity that you don't really see on social or you don't see, advertised in the marketing scheme. So
you see a house for $400,000 advertised online for
mm-hmm.
$50,000.
Mm-hmm.
Something's got to tell you something's wrong there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
People know.
Yeah. So what's next for KD Law? Like what would your, I guess maybe like 2 years down the line, where would you like to be?
Well, I am actively trying to build my team,
mm-hmm.
Trying to find the right people. We've had some ebbs and flows in that regard. I think the team that I have now is absolutely the strongest that I've ever had.
Great.
Trying to find ways to educate and bring up younger lawyers is important to me.
Every
You know,
industry.
people took the time to take me aside and say, do it this way, not that way.
Mhm.
And I'd like to be able to do that for others.
Mentors, right? How
Yeah.
important are those? And you bring up wanting to attract younger talent. That's no different than anything we've been trying to do, or just a lot of other businesses that I kind of network with are trying to do. But leadership and having that mentor is such a good uh, competitive advantage to have from a firm,
Mm.
and that's awesome because it's not everybody wants to be a teacher.
Yeah. When I first graduated law school, I thought I was the bee's knees.
Mm.
I mean, God's gift to the law. And
God's gift.
somebody took me aside and said, you know, you think you're cool.
Mm-hmm.
You're really just an asshole.
That.
And it hit me.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? I think I'm pretty cool.
Yeah, that had to hit.
And my world just sort of came to
Yeah.
a stop. And I went home and I said to my wife, I said, do you think I'm an asshole? And she said, well, you've got a pretty big head right now that you got this law degree. You might want to stop and look around the room. You know, it's a numbers game. If you have one person tell you, you could do this different. All right, you take that with maybe with a grain of salt.
Mhm.
2 people, you're a little more compelled. 3 people's a crowd. So if you have everybody turning around and looking at you and saying, hey, you should be doing this differently,
Interesting.
it's time to self-reflect. And a real man will self-reflect.
Mhm.
They'll make the adjustments they need to make in order to better themselves.
That's interesting.
So a lot of what you see here is a product of multiple mistakes
That's life.
and a couple of people saying, hey, you know,
Yeah, and
you
that-
could be doing this differently.
And that's life, just constant evolution of your life and the better. And some people, wouldn't listen to those people telling them, and they would stay in their lane and continue to operate at a detriment. But and one of them, I mean, your team, your partner, your wife, I mean, that's amazing.
She's incredible.
So she's got to, got to listen to, especially, family in general.
Mhm.
So I know that, as I've grown and I've changed career paths and kind of done different things, it's like my mother, my sister, they have a way of like being like, hey, slow down, or hey, take a look at this.
Well, they knew you when you were in
Yeah.
diapers,
Yeah.
playing with the Power Rangers and the toy trucks. I mean,
Yeah.
honest to God, they saw you at every stage of your life.
So, yeah.
So they have the right to turn around and tell you you should be doing something else.
Absolutely.
You know?
So 2 years trying to build that team out, new talent. Where do you find team members? Where would you find somebody? Is that
Yeah, it's the craziest thing. One of my key employees now was a client.
really?
She was a real estate agent. She's a wonderful person. Her name is Erica. And she was a real estate agent that we represented in a
Okay.
case I won't get into the
Sure.
details of. But it's the person that she was, there was a gravitating effect there that when I came to the point where I just needed good people, she was top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I just called her up one day and said, hey, come on in. I just want to talk to you about maybe the possibility of working here part-time.
Mm-hmm.
Within about 2 weeks, part-time turned to full-time. And she's been with us for a year now.
And is she still practicing real estate?
She is still practicing
That's
real
interesting
estate.
you bring that up, because you kind of also bring somebody in who sees something from a slighter different point of view than your law degree. She's
Mhm.
and she's a lawyer as well.
She's not a lawyer.
So
No.
that's where I think is interesting. She bring a different perspective into it.
Yep, absolutely.
So
Yeah, it's and we've had other employees. One found us online and just said, "Hey, I'd like
Yeah.
to learn more about your firm." Brought her in. That was great.
it's awesome.
We found people on Indeed.
I shout out Indeed. I am team Indeed. We over the past, wow, it's only been 5. So my 5 years will be in February with the firm, with
That's
REMCO.
great.
And over those 5 years, we kind of transitioned from a small 3-person operation to a 15-person team. Indeed was a big piece to that plug. So they've streamlined their platform a lot too, especially post-COVID.
And you don't just look at the resumes yourself.
No.
You have a team of people. I have a late friend. Her name was Gail Roop. And Gail looked at one of our key employees, her name is Ebony, looked at her resume and said, "This is the person."
Wow.
Interviewed her. She nailed the interview. And Gail sat there and was like, "Why are you even going forward with the others? You know, this is the person you want to hire."
Yeah.
And Ebony's been with us for 2 years now.
That's great. Yeah. And to be able to see that on paper is one thing. I mean, I personally need to sit down with the person a couple times. So we'll do like a Zoom interview, then we'll do a coffee or lunch, and then after meeting just with me, I'll bring them into the team because I tell the team too. I say, listen, at this point we're like this crazy little family, and
Right.
and the worst thing that we could do is bring somebody in here who kind of disrupts our crazy culture in the best way. Our culture's infectious. People like being in the office. People like working for the firm. So my biggest thing, and it's kind of like the thing that keeps me on my toes, is let's continue to make sure that those who currently work with us approve of who we're bringing in a way.
Right.
So I try to make them actively involved in the process.
Yep.
Especially if it's somebody who's going to be working directly with that person. There's no, they have to want to work with them.
Well, at work, I've got a right hand. Her name is Bernadette.
Okay.
And Bernadette is like a sister to me. She was my second hire.
Okay.
When I first started, I had hired a woman who came in, smoked cigarettes for the first 2 days of her employment, and then came to me at the end of her second day and said, "I have an opportunity at another firm. I'm not sure what I should do."
Uh-huh.
And when I gave her the suggestion of what she could do with that other firm, which I told her, go ahead and take the job, I called my wife and I said 2 things that no husband ever wants to say to their spouse. "Honey, you were right, and I was wrong." And she turned to me, and my wife said, "Call Bernadette." And that's what I did. Bernadette's been with us now. It's been 3 years.
That's great. Very good. Very good. And you guys are in Jersey.
We're in Jersey. We're in Haddonfield, right next to Hattie the Dinosaur, 35 Kings Highway East.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Do you get walk-ins?
We do.
I want to talk about walk-ins a little bit because we've gotten a few this past year, and it's starting to snowball. How do you handle when a walk-in comes in? Like, is there a protocol?
We usually will invite them in. Typically, at this point, time is money. Gail told me this. You can make more money. You can't make more time.
Never.
So it's important for me to be rigid with my schedule. If somebody comes in at random and they want to take a half an hour of our time, that's not acceptable to me, right? If they want to take 5 minutes to introduce themselves and schedule something, that's totally acceptable.
Sure.
We've been in Haddonfield now for 3.5 years, so our name is getting out
Absolutely,
there, and it's incestuous, at some points.
Absolutely.
This person talks to this person, and this person comes in. We've had a couple local businesses in Haddonfield who've become clients over the years.
Very nice. Very good. Yeah, and that stressing that protocol too. I mean, it's almost like when someone walks in, it's so unusual in this day and age where everything's so tech driven, or there's so much ability to kind of reach out to someone on the phone, that you almost want to give them as much time as possible, but to the point where you are rigid with your schedule, which I think is proper. But having a system, so we'll have like a form fill, or we'll have something that they can scan when they come in to just put something down with one of the agents.
Okay.
I mean, if they walk in and everyone's on the phone, I mean, you're basically looking to see who's even available to even greet this person.
Right.
So we try to have a process of at least documenting, getting them set up. If they want to have some coffee or some water and sit and talk to one of the agents who's maybe not, on a call or a booking, we'll do that. But yeah, I just find that it's kind of like one of those like lost arts, the walk-in, and is that somebody that you're gonna bring on immediately?
Yeah, processes and principles.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not going to sacrifice your principles for somebody that's not going to follow or be part of the process.
Yeah, for sure.
But you certainly want to, for those who are part of that process, you want to advocate for them and show them what your principles are.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. In terms of principles, are you is Katie Law involved in any like philanthropic the hardest
philanthropy
word
is important to us. We made sort of a name for ourselves as givers. And we enjoy that that name. We wear that badge with a lot of honor.
Yeah, I think I might have met a few people in the community. The Haddonfield Bash is always a big event every year.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
pretty much down. Are you down on that main street?
We're on the main street, right? I haven't
Uh-huh.
been to the Bash,
Okay.
but I've certainly been to a number of events where
Yeah.
there's a charitable cause behind it. It means you're doing more than just, supporting other businesses. You're
Mhm.
supporting a cause. We're a nonprofit business that can't necessarily support itself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
People like to do that.
Yeah. Good point.
When it's planned right, though.
Yes, it has to be planned right. There has to be a good process to that too. People want to feel like they're always in the know, and that there's enough, I guess, PR around it, or just enough planning. Yeah.
The last 3 years we've had an annual teddy bear giveaway.
Oh, that's nice.
Where we have we call in a local business. It's a machine that comes in and will stuff teddy bears like Build-A-Bear.
Oh, really? That's pretty cool.
For underprivileged kids in the area.
Understood.
Right?
Yeah,
so
that's
we've
very
hosted between 100 to 150 kids every year.
What time of year is that?
Usually the first week of December.
That makes sense. Around Christmas time, getting close to it and stuff. That's good. Yeah. So,
but those kids are important, and people should care about them in January too, right? And month. February and March.
Yeah.
So we do try to do some other things throughout the year, but
that's awesome.
We like the December event.
Got it. So with Katie Law, is there any focus on partnering with another type of industry in like a more formal way, or are you guys kind of like your own entity?
We're restricted in many ways.
Really?
A lawyer cannot ethically, under the rules of professional conduct, enter into a business venture with a non-lawyer.
Oh. Well,
the purpose of which is to provide any sort of legal advice. So we've got to be careful. I've seen other businesses have partnership agreements or referral agreements and things like that. Sure. I'm not permitted to incentivize another business monetarily for giving me referrals. I have to go out and earn it through their trust.
Yeah.
As opposed to through a document.
Yeah.
Which, again, as I mentioned earlier, it tastes better.
It sure does. Yeah, it sure does. I'm always so interested with some of the realtors that I follow, the wholesalers and the flippers. They get into that point in time where maybe they have to evict someone.
Yeah.
And that's always the stuff that gets my blood pumping on Instagram or whatever. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? So have you had any experiences with those directly? And some, maybe if there's a realtor out there listening who has been a part of one of these situations, because I know they're not easy, right? They're not the easiest situations to.
It's a lot of hardship.
Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah.
This economy's not easy. Life is not easy. I say this frequently, and I used to say it a lot more when I was in bankruptcy and foreclosures, but bad things happen to good people.
Mm-hmm.
So I always keep that humbling sense of self-awareness when I walk into landlord-tenant court, knowing that many of my friends are a rainy day away from being in the same situation.
Yeah, for sure.
So you just don't judge people.
No, yeah. But sometimes they can get dangerous, right? Like depending on.
You're taking somebody, maybe even their children, and putting them out on the street.
Yeah.
It's incredibly personal.
Yeah.
Even though it's not intended to be, as the lawyer, as the advocate.
Right.
And I think where a lot of real estate agents get caught up is they find themselves in a position where they're a jack of all trades, master of none.
Understood.
So they're doing things and saying things that are outside of their immediate comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where the principles come into play and the processes come into play.
Sure.
As a realtor, to recognize, these are the things I can't give legal advice to people.
Right.
So it's a fine line.
Yeah, and you bring up so many good points. I mean, it's a personal situation, it's a personal issue, and it's usually sometimes is there a good way of dealing with something like that?
In the moment, I'll just give you a little story.
Sure,
I was up in Toms River one time for landlord-tenant court in Ocean County, and a couple was there, and they brought their kids with them to landlord-tenant court, which as a parent is not something that any of us would want to do, but perhaps there were circumstances that made them bring the kids with them. And it was about the first week of December, and the father looked at me with the kids sitting next to him and said, are you going to explain to my children that Santa Claus is not going to come this year? And I got down on my knees. I looked the gentleman dead in the eyes. I think he understood I wanted to kill him. But I bent down on my knees and looked at the kids and said, guys, listen, just want to explain to you, Santa Claus is going to find you no matter where you are. So don't worry about it. Yeah. No law school exam or class prepares you for that moment.
Nope.
But you have to be real. You have to be honest with people. And I turned to the father and said, listen, there's a better way to do this. Please don't weaponize your children.
Right.
Because they're going to get hurt in the end.
Right. Wow. That was powerful. I mean, I pretty much have goosebumps right now, but to the point where you had to be a person there, and you had to speak to them intelligently and be honest with them, and no school would ever prepare you. That's just life.
Yeah.
That's just you dealing with
it.
Life.
It is.
The other piece too is it's tough because, children, I mean, I know you're a father, they're so sensitive at that age. So who knows what the trauma could have been by that experience. So,
it's incredible.
Well, you handled it in the right way. That was a really
I appreciate
interesting
that
story, and I appreciate bringing that up. So on the brighter side, do you find land acquisitions something that you're doing more now than ever, or is that still like
the real estate market is tough.
Yeah. So
where there's opportunities for people to build things that don't exist,
yeah,
that fit their needs, that's an important, piece of the puzzle for them,
Yeah.
As an attorney that does a lot of land development and zoning work,
yep,
taking a building that was outfitted for one thing and changing the use to something else, it's difficult because you're going into municipalities where the planning board or the zoning board is made up of people who've lived there their whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
They can tell you, I remember when that TD Bank was a Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard to get past that line.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the more honest you are as a person, the more humanizing you are, to show the towns, to show the boards that you're not out to get them or screw them over.
Sure.
It goes a long way.
Right.
It goes a long way.
And what do they look for specifically to kind of like approve something? Is it just to like in the betterment or the best interest of the town, or
there's statutory criteria. It's called the municipal land use law, and there's a whole litany of reasons.
Yeah.
Some of them are so vague.
I was going to say
that really it just comes down to, does the town want this or not?
Is it objective or is it subjective? Is it going to be someone back there who's just not having it, who's just like, I don't want this happening, and they can have enough power to kind of make that decision?
Exactly.
So
yeah, they can, and they can at least sway the board.
So they gotta like you
enough. They do.
They gotta like you.
They really do. And I learned early on in my career in zoning that so much of how you speak to the board matters. Because if you come across as some pompous jerk and they don't like you as the attorney, they're not going to like your client.
Interesting.
So I always tell people in the outset, one, please, God forbid, don't try to say my last name, right?
Yeah.
Call me Kevin.
Kev.
And that, compared to the applicant before me or the one after me that says, call me Mr. this or call me Mr. that or Miss that.
Yeah.
It's a game changer
It's a game
sometimes.
changer. And I'm sure some towns are easier to deal with than others. So if you're trying to get something passed in a town that you're like, oh, they like me here, this is going to be a breeze versus.
But I don't take that for granted.
No, yeah.
No, I don't, because honest to God, it makes it easier. You can sort of tell the client, hey, I've been here before. They're familiar with me.
True. I guess it's similar to kind of dealing with a judge, right? Too, that
Absolutely.
you've have a good rapport with. I mean, that's got to make or
Right.
break, your day in court.
But you just don't want to lend yourself, as a business owner, no matter what the business is, you can't make promises that you can't keep.
Mm-hmm.
People come to me, what's the percentage I'm going to win this case? I don't know what the percentage is.
The old probability,
And
it's like,
if I told you it was 50-50, one, that means nothing.
yeah.
Two, what if I'm wrong?
You got 50% chance of them being mad at you.
Exactly.
That's so interesting. Where like people want to know, like analytics, what's the percentage of this, what's that? I mean, you're setting yourself up, for pretty much, them to have something against you.
Right. Or I
Yeah.
could tell them there's a 100% chance that we know what we're doing.
Yeah, there you go.
There's a 100% chance we're going to give you an honest answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's 100% chance that if you call my office, you're going to get either me or somebody on my team,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to treat you with respect. We actually have in our engagement letter
Mm-hmm.
a communications clause that requires everybody to treat each other respectfully in communications.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be surprised how many people have come to us and followed through on that.
Mm-hmm.
The initial consultation, I tell people this all the time, that's the first date.
Yeah. Right.
It's only going to get worse from there.
Yeah.
So if they're treating you a certain way on the phone,
Yeah.
Or in the office,
Yeah.
it's not going to get any better.
Not gonna get any better. No, that's so funny. So for those listening out there, what are some trigger words that they might know to call KD Law, like other than hey, I need a lawyer, like
Yeah, lawsuit,
mm-hmm.
Zoning.
Those
are trigger words, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
That's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
Transactions,
Mm-hmm.
title issues. We've dealt with a lot of title issues.
Okay.
Things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain the cash for keys?
Yeah. Cash for keys.
Yeah.
You basically are in a situation, if you're the property owner and you have a tenant in the property and they won't leave voluntarily, you offer them some cash as an incentive for them to vacate the property by a certain day.
Okay.
They hand you the keys on that day, you hand them the cash. I absolutely recommend people to go that route.
Yeah.
If they're in a situation, and this is taking money out of my mouth, but the reality is, if you can solve a problem without a lawyer, that's great.
Sure.
Because I've got plenty of other cases where we don't have that luxury.
Sure.
And a lawyer and litigation is necessary to come to an end and just result.
Yeah, I bring that up too, just to piggyback off that situation that you don't want to be in, where you're at court, and you had to explain to the father's child that this is the way it is. Like,
absolutely.
If you can avoid any heartache, grief, or like you said, just not having to put yourself in that situation. So
yeah, and people lie. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
People lie all the time.
Yeah.
In court especially,
Mm-hmm.
because they think they're going to get some sympathy together. And I'll tell you another story real quick.
Sure. Yep.
But I had a gentleman in Atlantic City who applied for a stay of a physical eviction. He had been in foreclosure for 10 years. I'm not kidding you, 10.
Wow. Okay.
Bankruptcy petition happened, came and went. Another bankruptcy came and went. There was a moratorium on foreclosures for a period of time. So he got all of these opportunities to stay in the property. And he just said to the judge in the morning, hey, I need some more time. And the judge said, no. So that was around 9, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Flash forward 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a phone call. Mr. Diduch, we've got this gentleman who's come back in for another application. He says to the judge, I need more time. I have kids. I don't want to put my kids out on the street. And this was in 2016. I just had my daughter a couple of months before. And I said to the judge, I said, Your Honor, I said, not for nothing. I said, but I'm a father.
Mm-hmm.
If you asked me to show you pictures of my kids, we're going to be here all day. I got so many pictures of my little girl. We're going to be here for hours. All I would ask for this gentleman to do is show the court one picture of his child, and I will withdraw my objection. And the judge, I'll never forget it. He says, Counselor, that is a sweeping generalization. You know, not all fathers have pictures of their kids in their wallet, I guess, or on their phone, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was willing to take the risk that this guy did not have any kids.
Wow.
And he stuttered and he stammered. And he said, you know what, Judge, I just need a break. And the judge looks at him and says, you mean to tell me you don't have kids? No, I don't have kids.
Wow.
I lied. I'm sorry, but I just need a break. So it happens. Like,
give him a Kit Kat.
Give him a Kit Kat, right?
Wow.
Absolutely.
But you just had this sense about you to just bring that up. Sweeping generalization it was
absolutely. But I was willing to take the risk.
Yeah.
You know, which half of life is a risk, and the other half is instinct.
I know. I'm sure you're full of stories too. You probably have some crazy court stories.
Full of a lot of things, my wife will tell you.
No, it's been good so far. I mean, I really appreciate, so far the time that you've been giving. I wanted to just give a quick shout out. We have a little bit more time here. Maybe some knowledge for the new investor or the new real estate agent or the person just trying to get into this industry. Is there any advice other than, do what you say that you would tell them, or is there any tactile knowledge that you might have?
Take your ego and kill it.
Kill the ego.
Don't be afraid to take advice from people who know what they're talking about. Emphasis on the know what they're talking about. Because there's a lot of people out there who are free and full of advice, and it means nothing because they don't have a pot to piss in.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good smoke and mirrors on social media. Look at me, I'm doing this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
But on the side, they're asking people to lend them money. If you're in bed with a real estate investor and you're just trying to get in to the field, recognize who it is that you're getting involved with. If you're going to partner with somebody, ask yourself this question. 5 years from now, where do I see myself? Because if it's not on the same beach as your partner, if one of you is on the beach and the other is in the trenches, it's not going to work.
Understood. That's a good point. You really have to have the same vision in mind and want each other to be successful.
Absolutely.
And wisdom in general, right? I mean, I won't use insurance. I won't use real estate. I won't use, there's something to be said about somebody who's been doing this for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. I think as a younger guy just in business, listening to people who have been established, there's a lot to be said that, hey, I've been a lawyer for 10, 15, 20 years. And if I was just out of law school, there's 100% possibility that I can learn something from you.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been doing this for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, being humble and being like, listen, if this is my first year as a lawyer, second year as a lawyer, and this gentleman or this woman is willing to educate me and give me some information and mentor, you have to be a student of the game, no matter what your game is.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to cut bait, too.
Yeah,
I mean, because there's people that have been doing things for 10, 15, 20, 25 years that still don't know what the fuck they're doing.
That's true. Yeah.
I've been in situations like that myself.
Yeah.
Where I went into the room and thought somebody was something, and 3 weeks later realized, well, they really don't know what they're doing.
Really? Okay.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I was gonna, and that brings up because there's a lot of conferences, there's a lot of talks, there's a lot of expos where a lot of times you pay to get into these rooms, and have you found that you've maybe listened to somebody on a large scale or a large stage, and you found out that they were a phony?
I paid to get into a quasi partnership with somebody.
Okay. Yeah.
We were on the path to joining forces on a long term, and about 3-4 weeks into it, he was coming to ask me questions about things that he should know.
Sure. Yeah.
Or he would say, oh, I signed this client up and we're going to do this. I'm like, well, you can't do that because that's illegal. It's unethical. The client's never going to pay for that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to work.
Do your research. Do your research.
And to turn around, it's like, well, what am I supposed to tell them? You know, I already told them we could do it. It's like, well, you got to untell them.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to untie that knot.
Which means that you have to have your principles in place.
Sure.
To know, hey, you know what? I gave this advice. This was incorrect.
Yeah.
And call the client. Say, you know what? Listen,
yeah.
I thought this, but really it's this.
Yep.
If you can't do that, no matter what industry you're in.
Yeah, I agree.
You're doomed to fail.
I agree. A lot of good knowledge nuggets today, Kev. I really appreciate you taking the time to stop on. Is there any last minute piece that you wanted to kind of leave the audience with?
You know, if I was Jerry Springer, and this is our final thought.
This is the final thought.
I would say be good to yourself and be good to each other, right? It's so important in this world to recognize that other people are going through things that you don't even recognize. And it's super popular to say that. It is. The mental health struggles and being open about it. It's super popular to have opinions and to voice concern for others. You really need to mean it. Because if you don't mean it, it means nothing. So be good to yourself and be good to each other.
That is. That's Kev's final thought. We are going to wrap up the REMCO Real Talk podcast today. Again, Kevin from KD Law, and we are out. So thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.